The Mandalorian Darksaber is an artifact ripe with a deep history and intricate lore throughout the Star Wars galaxy, first being introduced in the Clone Wars animated series and carrying all the way through to the present day. With each additional appearance, we seem to learn more about the history of the Darksaber and a few of the most compelling attributes surrounding it. Recently, in the 5th chapter of the Book of Boba Fett, we learned that the Darksaber may be actively fighting against Din Djarin, refusing to accept him as its true heir and wielder. Recently, we touched on the compelling fan theory that explained why Din is the only wielder in recent memory that we've seen quarrel with the Darksaber, and why the saber seems to reject him. Interestingly enough, it doesn't seem that any other known wielder has had this problem as of now, at least not to what we've seen on screen. That being said, it has left many to wonder why the Darksaber never fought against other individuals, most notably why it never rejected Sabine Wren throughout her tenure wielding the blade in Rebels, based on the foundation of this theory. So stick with us, Acolytes of the Galaxy, and let's discuss the basis of this theory, as well as the supposed crack that needs to be explained in regards to Sabine Wren's tenure as a wielder of the Darksaber. The basis of this theory states that the Darksaber recognized how Din Djarin wanted to hand it away and reject the responsibilities that came with wielding the fabled blade, despite winning it in fair combat. This explains why individuals like Moff Gideon and Darth Maul, who are not Mandalorian, were able to wield the blade without issue. But for a full breakdown of this theory and all its intriguing details, be sure to check out our video on why the Darksaber is fighting against Din Djarin. One plot hole, however, that has seemingly arisen with this theory was why Sabine Wren was able to wield the Darksaber without the same ramifications as Din Djarin, despite giving the blade up to Bo-Katan at the end of her duration with the weapon. By the logic of the previous theory, the Darksaber should have rejected Sabine as a wielder, but there are a few explanations that explain away this inconsistency. The first and most prevalent of which was that the Darksaber did reject Sabine, though we were never shown the fallout for the simple reason that Bo-Katan accepted the saber and took it on as her own. After giving up the blade, Sabine went on her way, and as far as we know, she never encountered the weapon again, as it was currently in the possession of Bo-Katan. Therefore, she never used the blade after betraying it, and the Darksaber simply didn't have the opportunity to outwardly show that it was rejecting her, as she never used it beyond surrendering it. Din Djarin, however, attempted to give up the saber to Bo-Katan at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2. But where Sabine was successful, Mando failed. He failed to successfully persuade Bo-Katan to take the blade back, and the blade recognized this as an act of treachery. If this betrayal wasn't bad enough, however, Din continued to use the blade after outwardly showing express interest in getting rid of it. Since Din continued to use the blade after his betrayal of it, the blade sought to part ways with Din Djarin. According to this theory, which is why he began to find it more difficult to use only after trying to give it away and run from the responsibility of ruling the Mandalorian people. This implies that the blade understands the wills and desires of the people around it, and if it is able to detect these kinds of things, then why didn't it reject Sabine Wren well before she gave it up, or even reject that of Darth Maul? In the case of Maul, we find this very interesting, as he actually had the desire to rule over Mandalore and actually accomplished this goal. We're led to assume that the Darksaber was able to sense this within Maul, and it also appears as if the Darksaber holds a greater sense of sentience to it than other lightsabers do. Despite Darth Maul not being a Mandalorian, same with Moff Gideon, they both had the expressed interest to dominate and gain and garner as much power as possible, in a sense ruling over the Mandalorian people. This is why the Darksaber is attracted to them. The Darksaber, though, I believe is not an evil weapon, as it's also attracted to the likes of Sabine Wren and does not fight against her, as it is also her will to dominate against the Empire and defeat the Empire using the blade. Din Djarin, though, insults the weapon and attempts to give it away, not realizing its true potential. A few simple explanations arise from this question, the most prevalent of which is that Sabine Wren herself didn't know she was going to give away the Darksaber. Her desires and emotions were constantly in flux during Rebels Season 4, and she only decided to give the blade away after defeating Gar Saxon in single combat, and the Darksaber had no reason to detect that she would soon betray it and her responsibilities. Another point of contention has been the blade's sentience or willpower, which some have been hesitant to agree with. The primary piece of evidence that supports that the blade might have a will of its own comes from the fabric of the Force itself, and the tremendous intricacy with the Jedi Padawan, in which it creates a bond with their Kyber crystal. Tar Vizsla, creator of the Darksaber and original head of House Vizsla, was the only Mandalorian to be inducted into the Jedi Order, and seeing as he had a connection with the Force, he would have had a stern belief in the will of the Force and the knowledge that it has and its own desires. If this connection was passed down to the blade, then it may be attributed to its distinct inky black coloration, as we know that kyber crystals manifest their colors based on a user's individual connection with the cosmic force and the living force as a whole. Therefore, the black color. The black coloration distinctly shows that Wisla had some sort of a special attribute not yet seen before in any Jedi, and not seen since. And this may have resulted in his kyber crystal coming to life to some degree that other kyber crystals do not experience, even if it doesn't reach the level of full sentience. Given that the force itself does have a will, and different individuals are able to channel the force through either themselves or various artifacts, then the Darksaber kyber crystal would be saturated with force energy. And since we know some objects and locations are stronger in the force than others, it may stand to reason that the Darksaber itself is force sensitive to some level. While the saber may not be completely alive, it might have the ability to guide its own destiny as an artifact that is incredibly rich in force connection. This could explain why the crystal seems to favor any wielder that wins the blade nobly, even the likes of Darth Maul or Moff Gideon, who are not Mandalorian and do not hold the well-being of Mandalore in their best interests. Since they won it nobly though, it was likely the will of the Force for those leaders to take their place among the Darksaber's lineage. But Din Djarin's actions of defying the will of the Force might have meant that the blade did not accept him in return. Sabine's unique position amongst the wielders of the Darksaber, however, remains a point of contention, but we believe that this explanation serves as the most cohesive answer as to why the Darksaber has never acted this way in the past, and why Din Djarin seems to be the first on-screen user that the Darksaber has actively rejected. It's clear to us that the Darksaber holds no greater moral code, as it has been wielded by good and tyrants alike. However, it does wish to be wielded in its truest fashion and with its true nature, as a weapon to denote some of the greatest wielders of the Force and non-Force wielders alike, a symbol of power, and a symbol of nobility and honor. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? And do you believe that the Darksaber is rejecting Din Djarin because he tried to give it up? And if so, does this explanation work within the confines of the established Star Wars mythos? We would love to hear your thoughts and theories on this in the comments down below. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.